Hey, what's going on, world? This is Brandon, Mr. B. Great. Today's episode is about fathers helping fathers. What does fatherhood mean to you?
Man, it really means a lot of things, but most importantly, I think is being a part of somebody's life, knowing that you're a role model to them, but most importantly, be there, giving them the protection, being there to be that foundation. We all need some type of foundation that we can consistently lean back on when times get hard, and having those hard conversations sometimes. And I think just not just the caring, but caring and being present. Being present consistently. You're dealing with kids, man. I think consistency is the key. Those words of inspirations, they may not mean anything now when you 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10, and as they develop and start to mature, those conversations have meaning to them. And I think just being consistent in the whole aspect of them developing through the whole process.
You can be there, but not mentally be there. You know what I mean?
Right. And we've all seen that. I mean, come on, we're adults. Sometimes we got to deal with the headaches of life and the headaches of dealing with our own issues, and sometimes we forget that a child is innocent in their own way. They don't have anything but a clean slate, and the only thing they see is positivity. They don't see the negative. That's the things that adults we basically develop those things over time, because as a kid they just see the possibilities of greatness and just being positive about everything. I can do anything, So,
and we gotta keep that up too, because sometimes as we get older, we kind of forget about our dreams, and we kind of say that we can do anything that we can, but we don't display that.
Right.
So it's kind of a catch-22, man, because you kind of get that discouragement when things don't go your way.
Right.
But you still gotta instill that within your kids, because you don't want them to feel like I can't do it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. And I think that comes from, like you said, we all got different backgrounds. We grew up in different households, and some of the things that we saw, perspective is everything. The perspective of how you saw your family, and perspective of how you saw someone else's family, and some of the things that they dealt with. I was always, told back in the day, hey, look, you don't bring your problems to your house. I mean, when you come home, you leave the problems outside of the house. But sometimes I think, when we have issues, finances, we have issues dealing with not being treated right on the job and stuff like that. It has that, what I call, lingering ability to actually come home with you. And now the child wants to play, and you hear people say they have to take some time to wind down before they go in. That's because they know they can't go in the same way they left the job, man. You gotta basically regress. If you gotta go somewhere before you go home, you gotta do something, because when you go home, that child should only see the best of you. That's the only thing they should ever see. I mean, that's the only thing they should see. I mean, because that's what they portray, and that's what they think everything should be, just great,
And sometimes I catch myself, once I get home from work, I'm in the car 15, 20 minutes, because like you said, you got to digress. You don't want to bring that energy into the house. Whatever happened at work needs to stay at work.
That's right.
And what's your thoughts about like you in a relationship, and then a child comes along? That dynamic with your relationship now is different, because the child come in, and now it's like you got to split yourself with your wife or your significant other and the child. So what's your thoughts about, like, how do you balance that off?
I think that's something that definitely is a great question, because sometimes I think that as men, we understand that we love our wives, we love our significant other, whatever the case may be. And, when you're in the honeymoon stage, it's just you and that person. It's all in. And that's a balance. And I always tell folks, I can say honestly, since I've gotten married, and it was hard at the beginning, because we didn't have kids right away, so that we got a chance to get to know each other. But let's just say you don't get that chance. That needs to be part of date night, something that you give yourself back. Something that my wife constantly says we got to constantly make sure we do. Because you could have the tendency to spend so much time with the kids that you forget that the spouse needs the same attention. And that's vice versa. That's from the male to the female. Same thing, because when you have kids, you give so much of yourself to them.
Yeah.
That I think that's something that needs to be penned in, penciled in. If I could say my weakness is that I definitely need to follow a calendar. Yeah. When I don't follow a calendar, my wife consistently says, "Hey, look, it needs to go on the calendar." Because again, I can get running and working in life, so and it's just caught up in everything that definitely. Yeah, it definitely has to be something that's planned. It has to be something that is what I call intentional about making sure that you give the same amount of energy that you give to your kids that you give to your spouse or significant other, because that's part of the relationship. And that's what the kids look to. They look to see how we as adults treat each other. Because remember now, they're trying to use us as the platform to say, hey, well, look, that's how it should look. That's how it should be.
That's how my dad treated my mom, and that's how my mom treated my dad.
Yeah.
You know, they tend to follow what you do and not what you say.
Right.
You know, so you got to kind of be on edge and be, like you said, intentional with what you do, and show them that planning is a good thing. Plan to do what you say you're going to do instead of just going with the wind. Right.
And I think sometimes, you know, we hear it all the time with guys or ladies that say, well, you know, I never got a chance to see what it should look like.
Yeah.
I never got a chance to see what that type of atmosphere looks like. You know, the greatest thing in the world is something that's called change. You can change.
Yeah.
Even if you know that, you know, you're not the best person you want to be right now, envision what you want it to be.
Yeah.
And so if you are a confrontational person and you like, I don't want to be that person because I saw what that did to my parents, or I saw what that did to me as a child, seeing a lot of cussing and fussing and all that going on all day, every day, that basically if you don't want that for your kids, basically you can change it.
Yeah.
And the great thing about that's just a simple decision to say, you know what, I'm gonna work on me to be better, because you know, I don't have to get the last word on everything. You know, I don't have to be the one to basically end the conversation, or I win. You don't have to always win to win.
Definitely.
So, you know, you got situations where sometimes, you know, most people say, well, you know, I didn't get a perfect example. I didn't get that perfect example to go up around something that basically can give me what it should look like. It meaning the perfect relationship with your children.
Yeah.
The perfect relationship with your spouse, or whatever the case. So now you're in a situation that you said, well, you don't understand. I grew up single parent home. My dad was in and out.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just saying that's what I saw. So I don't have anything to pull from. And I remember a group of us were talking one time. I said, you know, the funnest thing about absence sometimes the absence of somebody that's not good for you may be the best thing that ever could have happened to you. Because when you don't have anything to pull from, that means everything you have is a clean slate. That means you can develop and build everything. You don't have anything. You create. You create. Living in a household where you're living with an alcoholic, abusive relationship, you seeing that day in, day out, versus somebody who comes in and out, and all you see is the best of them. You never see the worst side. You only going to see the best side. If that's the case, you only got a picture and a vision of the best side of someone versus what I call the inabilities, the insecurities, all the things that come with people that have all these issues, that now they're portrayed, and perspective-wise, they have been image have been burned into your mind, and all those things start to basically mess with your head. Yeah. And so sometimes the absence of being in a situation where you are an individual that you grew up in a single family home could be a blessing. Because although you didn't see them, but every now and then, although that wasn't right, but sometimes that may have been the best thing for you. Yeah. And so, again, you know, we know that time is important. We know that person spending time, because again, we all have had situations, and I always love to say, there's no such thing as a fairy tale relationship, fairy tale life. Life has to have its setbacks. Life has to have all the things that it gives you. If it does not give you that, then that's not life. Yeah, you're not living. You're not living. You just adversity's gonna come. Come on, man. That's what it's about. That's what it does to you. It makes you better. It makes you stronger. So, I've always said sometimes, you know, the absence has always been good for sometimes. But I think this is the wrong one. I
don't know if that's necessarily true, because unless you've been in that situation, you won't know exactly how that feels.
Exactly. And that's what the guy told me. He said, man, you don't understand. Your dad was there all the time, good or bad. I would just rather had a dad. My dad been there, even if he wasn't perfect, just so I could actually
know what not to do.
What not to do. And which is true. Like I said, there's no perfect either way. There's nothing that's perfect. Because again, we know perspectives of not being there. It hurts too.
Yeah.
And I guess that's why we as men should have conversations with each other, because we as men, we all are different, but we all have that same, what we call the image of wanting to portray the right image to our own kids. Yeah. We don't want to mess up.
Yeah.
Based upon how we grew up. So, yeah, that's all, man. That to me is just, parenthood is important, man. I mean, being present, I think is important, because we can cut down a lot of things, man. We can cut down a lot of issues, helping our kids understand that making good choices. What does that mean? What the responsibility of making good choices, the responsibility if you make a bad choice, hey, how you can actually still come back from it. And so sometimes I think, again, that goes back to what me and you were talking about.
Yeah.
We see the little sayings all the time on Facebook, Instagram. Hey, I couldn't give up because you never know who's watching. Quiet is kept. That's important.
Now, what about those fathers that's in a bind, like the relationship's going sour, and they trying to spend the time, but the mama ain't having it. The mama done moved on, and it's like, I want to show that positive influence and how important it is to know right from wrong at an early age, so you don't go out there and do what's wrong because you don't know. A lot of people do stuff they don't know because they don't know.
Right.
Like they just going with the wind. You know what I mean?
That's right. So, those situations, like anything else, there's always been a saying that whatever you actually focus on is what grows.
Yeah.
Whatever you give your attention to is what grows. And so we've heard that old saying, when they go low, you go high. You can't change people. We can't help who we fall in love with. We can't help who basically we end up with.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we do have the ability to control us. It's always been said, you always can be better. That way, the issues that you deal with, they're not going to get any bigger, but you can. So if you're dealing with somebody that has that ability to still be able to pull your strings and take you there, as we say, where you don't want to go, there's a situation where you got to get better. Can't get bitter because they keep making you go there, because their job is to figure out how can they have control of you by using the kids.
Yeah.
Right? Your job is to say, I'm not going to allow you to control me, because thank you for being the baby, the mother of my children, but at the same time, we don't work out, they're still your kids, they're your blood. Yeah. So your job is to be responsible enough to still show the image that your son or your daughter needs to see as an individual that is doing the right thing. Even though you may be getting cussed out, even though she may be like, I ain't having that, whatever the case may be, you don't feed into it. You may say, we'll talk about it later, yeah, she may go off or whatever the case may be, but you can lose and still win.
Yeah. Keep your composure.
I can keep my composure. I know where you're going, but at the same time, it's hard. It ain't easy, because sometimes you just want to go there.
Yeah.
So I think every man should look at that and basically say, well, what am I feeding into? Where's my focus? That means the only way I can be distracted means I lose my focus. So if I'm focusing on my kids, it doesn't matter what you do. If it doesn't have anything to do with the kids, I'm tolerating you to a point, but I'm not giving you any of my energy.
Yeah.
You don't deserve to rent space in my head. That ain't gonna happen. Right?
Yeah.
So that means that now, as long as I'm staying focused on my kids, everything I do is for my kids. If everything that I want to do is for the betterment of actually showing them the image and the perspective that they're going to have of me as a great individual that shows up with a positive attitude, with seeing the perspective of life as always being positive, then that means that's the image you need to make sure you work on. That means that you can actually work on yourself so that they can see that. And even though she goes low, you still can she'll go high. That don't make you a punk. That don't make you a lesser man. That just lets you know that you're trying to show your kids you don't have to feed into foolishness.
Yeah. man, that goes to say to look at the bigger picture always.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's right.
You got to look at it as what I want for my kids in the future.
Right.
Like, you don't want them to recycle this behavior.
Right.
So whenever things like this come about, you just say, okay, what's the bigger picture? Why am I doing this? Why I'm not spazzing out?
Right.
Why I'm not feeding them? If I can listen, if I can look at the bigger picture, then everything will be okay.
That's right.
This too shall pass.
That's right.
See it through. Being a father is not only about my perspective. You got to go out there and seek other people's perspective to get a better understanding about life. It's bigger than you. You got to look at the bigger picture.
My name's Eugene McCorkle.
And you have how many kids?
I have 3 daughters.
How old?
They're 30, 28, and 17. And I have a stepdaughter that's 32. Well, whether it's daughters or sons, the primary thing is that you have to be involved. And being that you are a father, you're going to run into many obstacles. Sometimes your biggest obstacle and hurdle is that after you're emotionally unattached to the mother, you got to realize that for the rest of your life, you're going to have to communicate with her. And you're going to have to come out and figure out how we can be mutual parents, but separate the emotions. And I find that a lot of people can't do that. And so they become each other's enemy, which doesn't do the children any good, because the children see the parents always fighting. And so since they never see a positive relationship, they in turn go out and get someone else. And then because that's their norm, they feel like it's only right if they're fighting as well. And see, with us as a people, a lot of us grew up without fathers. So we can only imagine what it's like. And even when we say, well, I'm going to do this because my father wasn't there. If the other person will not allow you to do that because your father wasn't there, if they become your main hindrance, then you're not only fighting your past, you're fighting your present, and it seems like it's halting your future. So when it comes to daughters, you have to be the man that they 9 times out of 10 will never find. What I mean by that is showing them that you're a provider, because there's nothing worse for a man to be a provider, but then when he comes home, his wife can't do anything with the provisions that he's made. And then this mindset that a lot of our daughters and sisters have these days is that a man's supposed to give them anything, give them everything, and I'm just supposed to be there for him. That's not the reality. Because if we can't combine and build a foundation together, then we're doomed to sink. And if you're always taking and always requesting more, but you're never giving, and you're never sharing, and you're never saving, then you're already lost. And that's the concept that most people do not ever get until they're too old to maintain. They live their life recklessly while they're young. Then when they get mid-age, they're like, well, I didn't put anything back, because they want to spend. And I teach my daughters, it does a woman no good to have a $400 pocketbook, but you don't have a measurement of stock in that company, or have the fattest and flyest car, but you can't afford the maintenance on the car. But then you expect the man to have the same thing, but he really can't afford those things, because guess what? He's trying to portray an image. And most of us brothers growing up young, we have no idea who we are, because no one has implanted within our consciousness who we are. And what we're supposed to do and how life is supposed to be lived. So you grow up watching TV, listening to music videos and things of that nature, and that's what's shaping your reality, and that's what's shaping your mind. But that's not entertainment, that's stupidity. Because anything that doesn't enrich you as a man to make you a better brother, father, son, and husband only deteriorates the possibilities that you have going further into the future.
So what would you say to those fathers that don't have that guidance? Like you said, they don't know what to do. Who do they look to? Who do they go for guidance?
There's a Bible verse that says, wisdom crieth in the streets. There's always a role model around, but a man has to be humble enough to sit and observe and watch, because there's always somebody doing better. And that those people that are probably doing better is not in your immediate circle. So if you're the smartest person in your group, you're in the wrong circle. You need to find someone that's going or has going where you want to be or already at that level, and go and ask, can you mentor me? I'm a young man. I haven't encountered everything in life, and I need a positive role model. That don't mean you're going to get the right person all the time, but out of every situation, negative or positive, there's always a lesson. But as long as you're trying to listen to good and godly wisdom, you can obtain things that you wouldn't trying to figure them out on your own. And then we need to read books. We don't want to read. We want to watch TV, listen to rap songs, and bruh, if it's not feeding you spiritually, mentally, you're like a bread that starts to mold. After a period of time, what good are you? Because nobody can feed off of that.
Get involved.